So I went into my Notion reading database the other day, which is where I like to keep information and keep track of like all the books that are on my TBR, all of the books that are on my wish list, everything that I have read in the past. And for those books inside of that dashboard, I like to keep track of a few different pieces of information. Obviously, cover and title and author, but also things like tropes and themes and subgenres, as well as my reviews and ratings for each book. Now, I set this up about 2 years ago, so my data is limited, like inside of the system, to about 2 years ago. But I decided to go in there the other day, and I was looking underneath my different genres, and I decided to click into the horror one and just take a peek at like what I have tagged subgenre wise or trope wise. Or theme wise for all of the books that I've read so far. And it gave me an idea of, I think it would be fun to go through some of the most common ones that I have read over the past 2 years and rank them on how well I've been enjoying them. So that is what we're going to be doing today. I have created a little tier ranking template thing over on Canva. I do know that there is Tier Ranker, but I'm more comfortable with Canva, so that's what I made mine in. And I'm going to pull out like some of the biggest ones that have the most books listed under them. And I thought that I would go through them one by one and rank them on my experience with them so far. Like, how am I enjoying it? What am I loving about it? What am I not loving about it? And I just thought it would be really fun to kind of look at my reading experience this way. However, because I only have about 2 years of like reading history tracked inside of this Notion dashboard, I am going to try to keep my opinions and my thoughts only limited within the reading books and content that I have done for those 2 years. So even if I've loved like a specific subgenre in the past beyond 2 years, like further than 2 years ago, I am only ranking based on the content I've read under that subgenre for the past 2 years. So I hope that makes sense. So basically, I'm limiting my reviews and my feedback to the books under those subgenres that I have read in the past 2 years. Okay. I think that this is going to give an interesting little spin about it because how I felt about something, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, based on those books that I read, can be vastly different than what I felt about the more recent material that I've read in the subgenre. So this is going to be strictly focusing on the past 2 years, and we are going to dive into some of the most read subgenres for me and see how I am feeling about it. We're going to keep this extra casual and chatty in style, but to give a little bit of extra value to you who are watching, I will also like some of the ones that I guess have been enjoying the most or have like a standout book in my head for that particular subgenre. I'll also share like a book recommendation for you to pull something out of this or to leave this video with if you're interested in checking out the subgenres that I'm talking about. Okay, so let's hop on over to the tier ranking. Okay, hi, I'm down here now. I pulled 16 of the subgenres that I have been tracking inside of my Notion over the past 2 years. Each of these were like the biggest ones because I was able to like take my Notion database and rank them by how many books I've logged under all of the subgenres. And what I just did is like pulled a handful of like the ones that I had done the most because I felt that way I at least had enough to go off of from the past 2 years in order to give enough of an opinion. So with that said, I'm excited to get into this. Let's just go ahead and dive in. So I've got my tiers ranked out here. There's 5 tiers. So at the very top, we've got top tier. Obviously, like these are my absolute favorites. Auto buy these whenever I see them. If it's on my shelf, it's going to be one of the first things that I want to actually like reach for and read. And then we have one more down, which is Give Me More. So I'm always looking for reading more of these. It is a subgenre that I reach for often. Then we have That'll Do Donkey. If you've seen Shrek, you are familiar with that there. But basically, this is sufficient. Like, it's a good time. I read it. It's not my favorite. It's not something that I think is, being done like extremely well. It's not something that's hitting really, really good for me. I don't really get excited over these. But they're still a okay time. They're still a good read. And, I, for the most part, enjoy them. And then we have meh. Meh is like, okay, this could have been better. This isn't hitting well for me. I'm not really jiving with this in the best. It's probably one of those subgenres that if I had the choice between that and something else, I would probably go for something else at this point. And then at the very bottom, we have why. Why is this not being done as much as or as well as I would like to see it, basically? So like all of these subgenres obviously are something that I'm interested in, or else I wouldn't have read them in the first place. So I feel like for the ones that I put here, it's likely because they had a lot of potential. Like I saw a lot of potential going into books within this subgenre. Like, why am I not loving it as much as I thought I was going to, basically? So that is kind of how these tiers are looking right now. Okay, so you've got like haunted houses or anything to do with like ghosts is basically what I am referring to here. And this one is one I guess we're starting off in a little bit of a difficult one, because I feel like in theory I should love this. I love anything to do with like ghosts and hauntings, and historically this has been one that I have enjoyed a lot, or let's just say like in other forms of media, I'm definitely loving a lot. I love anything to do with like a movie with a haunted house or with like a ghost. Like that's one of my favorite things. And unfortunately, though, I feel like a lot of the haunting or ghost horror books that I have read in the past 2 years specifically are missing something. Like, they're not scary. I think that's what it boils down to. Like, the ghost horror and the haunted houses horror that I've been reading, they don't scare me, and they don't give me that feeling that I'm looking for when I'm going into like a scary book. Like I want to feel uncomfortable. Like that's why I'm reading it. I want to be terrified. And one of my favorite, like if a book is keeping me up at night, making me feel uncomfortable, like making me listen to the different sounds in my house going like, what was that? That's when I know it's a good horror book. And I feel like haunting and ghost horror books should do that. Like I feel like that's the main goal of these kinds of books, but they're not doing it for me. They're not doing it for me. So that's been kind of unfortunate. And I guess if I had to put this in net, because like I said, it's one of those things that I want to love, but for some reason the recent books just they're not getting me where I want to go. So yeah, if you have like a haunted house or a ghost horror book that really scared you, that terrified you, that made you feel uncomfortable at night in your own home, let me know, because I need to read it. I need this subgenre really needs to be redeemed for me, because the past 2 years have not been it for me. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Also, by the way, if you see me keep looking down at my phone, that's because I've got Notion pulled up, and I'm going through like the different books and just like looking at them, glancing at them to get a feel, to remind myself what I've read recently so that I can sufficiently rank it. Okay, so let's look at the next one, which is vampire horror. So I guess I should just say I love me a vampire. I have always loved vampires, literally since I was a child. When I was 7 years old, my favorite movie was Queen of the Damned. And when I say that I wanted to be Akasha, or what is her name? Main character girl, Jessie. Jessie was her name. Okay, that was my 7-year-old dream. But I digress. I love vampires, but I only love terrifying vampires. I'm not like a vampire romance type girly. Vampires should be more terrifying, and they weren't in that. Like, not how I imagine vampires in my head. I want vampires that are vicious, bloodthirsty monsters. That's how I like my vampires. And so that is why I lean more into vampire horror than vampires in other in other type of genres. So I've also read vampires in fantasy, but again, I tend to like vampires in dark fantasy versus any other kind of fantasy. For example, on the dark fantasy, which I guess the series is actually like a blend of horror and fantasy, but it is Empire of the Vampire. I read the first book and absolutely loved it, and we'll be reading the second one. But that's a really good example of the type of like fantasy that I will enjoy with vampires because they are monsters. They are ruthless and bloodthirsty and terrifying, and that's how I like my vampires. So when it comes to vampires, I'm gonna put it in Give Me More because if it is a vampire horror, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to give it a chance because immediately once it says vampires in the synopsis, I'm down. However, I'm not in top tier right now because I haven't really read any that I have loved that are strictly horror. I did enjoy Empire of the Vampire. Another horror that I recently read that was really good, it got 5 stars, was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And that one is by Grady Hendrix, and that one is good. I like the way that the author in that one plays with the dynamic of the vampire in the way that I kind of like, where they can appear like an everyday normal person, but they're really absolutely terrible and terrifying underneath all of that. So that one was really good and I recommend it. But beside that one, I haven't been finding any that like super hard hit for me. So again, if you have vampire horror books that you recommend that are truly terrifying, like they're actually monsters, let me know because I want to read it. Okay, so our next one is creature feature, and creature features they're my kryptonite. I love me a monster book. So what I mean by creature feature is that it's the kind of horror book where some kind of beast, some kind of monster is the antagonist. And I literally love horror books that do that, where it's like something is lurking in the woods, something is hunting people, like you are literally trying to fight for your life against this otherworldly or ravenous beast of some kind. Like that's my favorite kind of horror for sure. Even if the writing's not the best, like the idea of that creature, that monster is so unsettling that I can't help but just love it. One of the ones that stick out to the top of my head under this subgenre that is a favorite from the past 2 years would be, well, I guess it's two technically, but it would be Stolen Tongues as well as the prequel to that one called The Church Beneath the Roots. Those are both by Felix Blackwell, and the antagonist in that one is a creature that is terrifying. That literally kept me up. That is one that had me listening to the sounds in my house like, what was that? So yeah, really good experience. Really loved that one. But if it is a creature feature book, I'm literally going to buy it. I'm going to buy it and I am going to try to get to it as soon as possible because it's one of my favorite things. And then we have occult and witchcraft. Now, witch horror is another one of those that in theory I should love. I love all things witchy in all kinds of different like media types. Again, witch horror movies are one of my absolute favorite things. I also just in general love reading about witches, whether it is horror or another genre like fantasy or, contemporary, even like more like, I guess not contemporary, but like magical realism type, more literary type reads with witches. I also tend to enjoy. Historical witches is one of my favorite things. So like I love the themes of witchcraft. I love when I love creative uses of like occult type themes and tropes and objects. I also really love a lot of the symbolism that comes from witch fiction, and a lot of times like the female rage that you're going to experience in a witch horror book. I love it. However, I just the past 2 years, once again, it's just nothing that I have read has hit with me the way that I have like wanted it to. Um, I actually recently just did like a witchy horror reading vlog. And right before that, I did like a try a chapter from a few different witch horror books. Um, to see which one I hit the most, and then the ones that I liked the most, I read in the vlog. After that you can go and like watch if you want more details. And I did find some from that I enjoyed. So I read Slewfoot by Brom, and I also read The Cunning Folk by what is his name? I'm blanking on his name. I'll put it up here so you can see. But anyways, so I rated them well. They still just didn't get me where I wanted to go. Like when it comes to witch books, I want to feel unsettled, like the horror type. I read a lot of witches, so I can get like the historical stuff somewhere else. I can get the nature type stuff somewhere else, like the beauty of nature and all of that. In another type of genre. But when it comes to witch horror fiction, I want to feel unsettled. I want to feel uncomfortable. I want to be terrified. I want to feel all of those different feelings. And the books that I've been reading under the subgenre lately, just they haven't been doing that for me. I don't know. They've fallen a little flat. Now, not that I don't enjoy them. Like if I would take the books by themselves, like they're good books. I enjoyed them. It was a good idea. The writing was good. However, it's the horror part of the horror that I'm missing. I want to feel scared, and they haven't been doing that for me lately. So if I had to rank this one, I think I'm gonna put it in That'll Do Donkey, because like I said, they're good books. I usually have a good time reading them. I just never get those feelings that I'm hoping for or looking for when I go into them. Okay. Now we've got religious horror. So religious horror is one that always really does it for me, which I actually find kind of funny, kind of contradictory, because I'm not a religious person myself. I did grow up in a religious family, and maybe that's why those kinds of themes and like horror devices work really well for me and get under my skin. Or maybe it has nothing to do with that at all. I don't know. But I do know that religious horror is something that is inherently uncomfortable for me. Like there's so many elements that can show up inside of a religious horror book, like of course, like faith and devotion and ritual and worship. And usually they have like elements of some type of hierarchy and power dynamics, and all of those together just really do it for me, because it creates this scenario that I find so deeply unsettling. And that is why I really always enjoy religious horror. And I don't even care if it's based on like a real world religion. Like it could be based on Christianity, or it could be based on like a completely made up or like never seen before type real world religion. Either way, they do it for me. So yeah, I think that stories that kind of tap into that, the power as well as like the danger of belief and devotion in something, is just really good. I'm hooked usually. I actually read a book in the past 2 years that was 5-star here under religious horror that I just freaking loved. I loved it so much. It was The Unworthy by Augustina. I think her last name is Batsarica or something like that. Something like that. I'll put it up here. But The Unworthy. It was so good. It was a religious horror that had me feeling very uncomfortable, very unsettling, like very unsettled. It was a mix of religious horror, but also in like an an apocalyptic setting. If you haven't read it yet, I definitely recommend. Super good book. Now we've got Gothic. So Gothic is something that I feel like I've been seeing everywhere lately. I feel like there's been a lot of books that have been being released recently that are like describing themselves as Gothic. And sometimes I agree with that description and sometimes I don't. But I'm not mad at it because I do truly enjoy Gothic books. Something that I actually really like about Gothic books is that the Gothic subgenre as it's like on its own has existed for almost as long as like horror books in general. I feel like a lot of the original horror books that were ever written and released and published were Gothic fiction. And so I guess it just has like a little soft spot for me there. Um, I really love the inherent like dread that comes from Gothic fiction. Gothic fiction tends to be more on the slower side, like it's a slower buildup. And something you might know from just looking at my tiers already is that I love a fast paced, gory, good time. Like I do tend to prefer that in my horror in sometimes, but I can also really appreciate a slow unraveling of a story if it's done really well with that gothic atmosphere and with the like the building dread up that comes from a gothic type book. But as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of the books that list themselves as Gothic in the description, I don't truly agree with. I feel like they are maybe using that as a marketing aspect, and it's not really true to the Gothic subgenre as a whole. So, with that in mind, I feel like I'm going to put it under because there are certain books that are released as Gothic horror that I love. One of the that comes to my head is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia. You guys, I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry. But Mexican Gothic, so good. I love it so much. That one had that slow unraveling of the plot, that feeling of like rot and decay. The atmosphere was so good. Definitely recommend that one if you want a good Gothic horror. But then on the other hand, a lot of them also just haven't been hitting as well. Or even if they're good stories, I just don't agree that they're Gothic, if that makes sense. Okay, let's go on to Dark Academia. So, Dark Academia is a subgenre that I just recently have made peace with, and now I'm kind of obsessed with it. I'm diving on into Dark Academia. Previously, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago, I read my first ever book that was described as Dark Academia as a subgenre, and I hated it. I hated the experience. I did not like it. I actually DNF'd that book like 3 times and I kept trying to come back to finish it and just could not. I could not. And so in my mind after that, I was like, I don't like Dark Academia. Like, that's crazy because the way that, like, in theory, I should love Dark Academia. I love academia, like, in general. I love the kind of settings and the kinds of themes that brings up. I love reading about academia and other kinds of genres and stories, and then like match that with horror, and I should be down for that, right? But for some reason, I just had it in my head that I did not like Dark Academia stories because of that one really bad experience, and I didn't try to pick up another one for 2 years. And then this past fall, I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? I was seeing a lot more Dark Academia being released. And I was like, I want to give it another try. So I actually did like a first chapter taste test that I released on the channel if you want to go see that, where I actually tried the first chapter from like a handful of Dark Academia books, see what I thought of them, pick my favorite, and then I read it in a vlog later. But during that vlog, I found out that, hey, I really actually like this genre a lot. It just has to be done in a specific way or written in a specific way. Like I guess there was elements of the first one that I didn't like. Maybe it was just the writing. I don't know. I hated it. So I guess I just hadn't found the right version for me yet of dark academia. But now I know that it is something that I love. It's something that I can enjoy. My battery is dying. I need to fix that out. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. So to pick up where I left off, I can't remember what I was saying. It was about dark academia, and hopefully, I'm gonna think that I just finished what I had to say about that. But I'm gonna put it in Gimme More. I wouldn't say that it's like my all-time favorite ever, but definitely I'm intrigued by the subgenre. I definitely want to try exploring more underneath it. One of my favorite that I've actually read under this subgenre recently is Don't Let the Forest End by C.G. Drews. That's one of the ones that I read in that vlog that I literally love so much. 5-star read, was so good. I definitely recommend it. Okay, let's move on to folklore and mythology horror. So this is one that is kind of broad or vague, but it's horror that has to do with anything that has to do with a folk tale, folklore, mythology, figures or creatures or stories, fairy tale retellings that are like dark. All of that is kind of what I'm grouping together here. And this is another one that I really like. It really does it for me. I've always been extremely interested in folklore, like in general, like extremely drawn to those kinds of stories. Mythology, I love mythology. I actually spent years like studying the mythology from various areas of the world just because it's something that I like love to do. They're so interesting to me. And so of course that translates in horror fiction. Whenever I see anything that has to do with like local folklore or mythology, historical fairy tale retellings, all of that, I immediately want to buy it. Actually, one of the ones that I've read in the past 2 years that I loved was Krampus by Brom. This one is not strict horror. It's more like one of those dark fantasy horror blend mixes, but it follows Krampus, who of course originates from like a folk tale in Germany. I also really like the movie Krampus, like the horror movie called Krampus. So good. Maybe it's just that I love Krampus in general. But yeah, definitely recommend that one. Really good. If you like folklore type horror stories as well. But yeah, folklore, mythology, fairy tale, top tier for me. Absolutely love it. I love a dark fairy tale. I love a dark fairy tale. And I also love horror that feels like you're reading a dark fairy tale, if that makes sense. It might not actually be based on a fairy tale, but it has that feeling. Yes, love it. Top tier. Absolutely my favorite. And then we have psychological. When I go into a horror, I expect certain feelings, I guess I should say. And unfortunately, the books that I've been reading in the psychological like subgenres, like if it says in the description, this is a psychological horror, and I go in expecting certain things and it just doesn't hit. I feel like a lot of the times horror books that are like said to be psychological in the in like the blurb and stuff like that, or categorized as like a psychological horror, that it's actually more of like a thriller. And thrillers have their place and I love a thriller, but when I go into a horror book, I want a horror story. I don't want a thriller per se. So this one fortunately is going under right. Like, why am I not loving this? Why are the books that are being released as psychological horror more just like a thriller? I don't understand. This should be fixed so that I can enjoy a good psychological horror. I haven't in the past 2 years had a single one that I've loved. Okay, and then we have domestic and suburban horror. So this is one like, like having to do with neighborhoods, having to do with neighbors or like communities, like small communities, or horror that takes place within like the home or like a family unit. And this is one that I always get really excited for because I really like the play on, number one, I like the play on when it's a domestic horror. I like the play on family dynamics. Like, I love a good, like, mother daughter or son clash, or father daughter and son clash, like horror that takes place within a household, where kind of playing on the relationships between the family dynamics. I really am excited for, because it's something that I want to love. And also, when it comes to like suburban horror, where it's like neighborhoods and neighbors, that stuff gives me the freaking creeps. Something about me is I have moved around a lot in my life. I have moved, when I was growing up, I went to 26 different schools from kindergarten to, when I left school. And I have spent my adulthood married to somebody who was in the Navy. So we moved constantly. I've done a lot of moving. And the themes of like that you typically find in like a suburban horror, where it's like somebody's moving to a new neighborhood and their neighbors are freaking creepy, or certain things are going on with the house or the community. I love that. In theory, I want to love that, because it kind of plays or like mirrors my own anxieties, and I wanted to love that so much. I've read that have these past few years have been meh for me. So that's a little disappointing. If you have a domestic or suburban horror that you could recommend to me that you really, really enjoyed, let me know, because I'm definitely open to reading more of those, because that's another one that I just want to love and just haven't. So then we have slasher or serial killer, and this is one of my favorite like horror movie genres for sure, and I really want that to translate into stories, but it doesn't. It literally doesn't. I feel disappointed in every book that I have read that has like a slasher or a serial killer as the antagonist in a book. Of course, I love all the classic like horror movies within the genre of slashers and serial killers. I grew up watching them, and I feel very nostalgic about them, but for some reason, every slasher or serial killer book that I have read, it just doesn't do it for me. Like, I don't feel scared or even that interested. I actually seem to lose interest like halfway through. So I just haven't read a good one, maybe. I feel like a lot of the ones that I've actually read in this genre, they're less their own thing and more kind of like service for the fans of the horror movies. And while I guess I can appreciate that in a way, I want to read unique ideas. Like, I want to read a full experience that can be inspired by some of the old classic horror movies for sure, but it is its own idea on its own. Like, can stand on its own feet and is intriguing from start to finish while being its own thing. And I just haven't found. And then we have rural and small town. So one actually is one that I love. I love rural and small town settings. And while I did just tell you guys that I grew up moving all over the place, my family has roots in a very, very small northern Louisiana town. And so when we weren't bebopping all over the place, we were back visiting family in the small town. I spent a few years in the small town myself. We are now, me and my husband have returned back to our small town and are back living in it after getting out of the Navy, and I'm very excited to be back and to be here. However, this subgenre does really well for me, I think, because of that. There's so many things about a small town and about rural settings that can just feel so unsettling and uncomfortable. And it always just really, really does it for me. Editing Brittany here. So first off, if you are still watching this video at this point, I want to say thank you. You are a real one, because I have had so many like audio problems throughout this video. Apparently, I was doing too much that my laptop could not handle with screen recording on a software, using my camera as a webcam, and just like running that all together along with my like audio editing software at the same time was too much, and I didn't know when I was recording that hour-long video that every time like I moved the mouse, my audio was cutting out. It was crazy. But yeah, if you are watching this, I super apologize. At this point in the editing, anything past this part in the video was terrible audio quality. Like, I just cannot, I refuse to even try to put it up. So I will probably do like a follow-up to this later with the rest of the subgenres I didn't get to, along with maybe some other ones that I didn't cover today, so that I can like finish this out or like just do a part 2. So if you were looking forward to hearing my thoughts on those other subgenres, I apologize. I will have to make that up to you guys later. But I just wanted to hop in here and say that I had so much fun making this video. This was, I don't know if you can tell by how much I freaking yapped. Like, I yapped so much. But I really had fun talking about this. So I hope that you enjoyed it despite all of my technical issues that I had. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on part 2 or any other type of videos that I put out like this in the future. And before you go, let me know if you have a book suggestion for any of the subgenres that I did talk about in this video that you think I might like based on what I said. I would love to hear it. I'm always looking for more book ideas and things that hopefully I will have a good time with. After all, that is what reading is for. So again, thanks for being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.